Hello, everyone in podcast land. I'm David.
I'm Jono.
And this is the podcast where we talk about the final frontier, those strange new worlds when we age out and become, senile old men.
And, senile old men who are still in robot bodies.
And thank God he's so much less senile this season. I'm so grateful because this is the Let's Wing It podcast. And this week we have a treat for you. We're going to talk about so many things. The primary thing is going to be Picard season 3. Jono's finally finished, so we're going to be able to do a spoiler cast. I know it's been a couple weeks, but you probably needed some time to watch it too.
I finished it in 3 days.
Yeah. No, you went fast. But I'm saying I like doing spoiler casts later. I always found that with Carpal Critics too. We actually had better performance in videos if we waited a week, so people could click on that without worrying about spoilers because they had seen it. Anyways, this is all brought to you by our sponsor, Your Mother. We don't have a sponsor for this week, but we just want to let you know that there will be sponsors in this part of the episode at some point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically our first sponsor was Elgato.
That's true, actually. Shout out Elgato.
Yeah, and then we're not using those stuff right now because
I'm using wave panels. They're up there.
Oh, yeah.
You can see what? You can see what?
I was screwed for future episodes. And then also we have our Patrons. Patrons are technically our sponsors.
Shout out to the Patreons.
Yeah. So go to patreon.com/let's wing it. They are seriously great people that have allowed us, as you notice, if you aren't listening, if you're on our YouTube channel, seeing us because they're awesome donations and also pledges allows us to buy a license because that's the thing. You have to buy yearly subscription licenses to get access to software now because that's a great thing.
We're currently subscribing to Riverside, which we enjoy. We are trying out Autopod to see if it's helping with editing the podcast. It seemed like it did an okay job last week. It's a resource hog all the way to the top of the bottleneck. And so I'm going to try and see if I do it a different way next week. It'll be a little bit better. But it was like I literally couldn't do anything by the time I got to the end of it. It would be like I would click, I would do anything, nothing. I would have to do it all kind of outside of Premiere. But then I guess I also pay for Premiere and Photoshop. But I guess we haven't used Photoshop for this, but Premiere. So
I mean, do you want? Because I can talk to someone about getting a used the M1 MacBook Pro. That's the one that I was used to use. So maybe you can talk about that. Let's chat about that later.
Let's talk about that later. Let's talk about Picard, Jono. What did you think now that you're done this season? What did you think of Picard season 3?
Honest to God, in the last 5 years of Star Trek, it is the best Star Trek show, or maybe just Star Trek season.
Easily.
The best 10 episodes of Star Trek you would ever watch. Granted,
not ever. Not ever.
Yeah, not ever. Last 10 years.
Yeah.
I will say this is if you watch Next Generations into this, there's definitely less of the Next Generation stuff, about morals and whatever. Mm-hmm. And then this one's straight on action, thriller, mystery, and also a ton of fan service where it's perfect. It's the perfect amount. It didn't feel overdone. But it felt like it fit well in the story.
Well, and it didn't feel shoehorned in. They found a way to make all the fan service feel like it was necessary for the story to work. Every time they introduce a character, it's not all at once and you're they do a big build-up. It's there is a kind of a little bit of a build-up. In particular, I think Worf, it's there's a secret character that's the shadowy figure you don't know. And he shows up to save the day, but it's a relief to see him, but it's also it wasn't a big oh my God, it's Worf. And I really appreciated that. Every single character they bring in, they have a moment, but it's not so Star Trek Into Darkness where it's the whole orchestra goes and so
I mean, to be honest, I think the only person that I was kind of was he really it didn't make sense. This is the one thing I struggled a lot with was this is a spoiler cast, who cares?
Spoilers for Picard season 3.
Yeah, so season 1 Picard, Data was requested to die. So he was let go. He passed away. But Data came back here. I'm I struggled with that one a little bit.
Okay. I think that they did a good job That's the only scene in Picard season 1 that I like is Data being like, I want to experience the full breadth of human emotion or human experience. I want to experience death. They unplug him. It's all good. I thought that was great for that season. Yeah. I knew before this season started, he was going to be back. Like to me, it was like, that was never a thing. This is TNG reunion season. And I think that they did a pretty good job. I kind of agree. Like this Data body with Lore and B4 in there was good. I think what I really liked and then subsequently liked less was the showdown between Lore and Data. So that setup is pretty good. But so I think it's pretty cool. So if you haven't seen it and you're watching the spoiler cast, here you go. So Data, Lore, and B4 are inside the mind of this new body for Data that is aged, so that he has the experience of being old because they need to explain that Brent Spiner is older. But the different parts are partitioned, so he's kind of like switching between personalities. So they plug him in because they need control of the ship, all kinds of situations, but they need full Data. They can't have Lore. Lore betrays them, fucks everything up. So they're like, we need Data to win. And the only way to do that is for them to remove the partition between Lore and Data and for Data to win this like mental battle.
Yeah.
And so they do that. They lift the partition and they come face to face and Lore starts winning the mental battle. Basically, he starts like taking parts of Data. Just like, what's going on? Like, oh, well, I'm taking your essence. I'm becoming you. And Data starts giving him these mementos from his past. So it's all these kind of like fan servicey things like, oh, it's the Sherlock pipe. He gives it to Data. And Data's like, why are you giving it to me? And Data sees it kind of as like a trophy as he's beating his brother. He gives him Spot. I really like that. And then and then Data disappears and you're like, oh shit, Data's dead. Obviously not. And then Lore's like, wait, no, God, no. And then like Data kind of appears from inside him. They do that bullshit.
Yeah.
I was super into it up until like Data comes out of him. I thought the point was going to be as Data's disappearing, he's like, I am the sum parts of my experience. Like I am everything that like I experience. That's who I am. And so like these memories, they are me. And so I thought it was going to be like when Lore takes these memories, he's going to become Data. And like that's going to be the turn is like he'll be Lore, but he'll also be Data. And so they become like one being. And I thought that would be so much more interesting than like Lore being like, wait, no. And then Data appears and sucks him in. And it's like, who fucking cares? This is
because it was already hinted at the beginning of the fight. It's like, these are me. Like, like to be a person, like, this is a very true statement for everyone, not even just for Data, is that like your memories, your past makes you. So, him giving, I already saw it coming. I'm like, oh, he's going to give this shit and he's going to but for me, I was kind of like expecting it was going to be like a Data Lore hybrid. Like that's what I was expecting.
Same. I thought that would be way cooler too.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I know you mentioned B4, but B4 was like barely in it.
No, it was like a mention.
Yeah,
I agree.
And but I was kind of hoping, which he kind of like, it's based enough, like it's Data 2.0 or 3, whatever version Data is. And then it's just him being a little bit like, it's based enough. He just doesn't have to be like, I'm a robot. He's just like, I can feel.
Because that's where they get to. The Data at the end of, this whole thing, he's human Data. He's full human. He can say contractions. He can make jokes. He understands like humor and emotion. Like he is essentially as human as Picard is after this mental battle. And I think it would have been way cooler if that's because he's like a fully integrated version of himself and Lore. And like, the impulses that Lore have and like the kindness and intelligence that Data has, like those come together and form this full complex being. That's like a really interesting moral idea that you can explore like they used to in TNG and have it be like, what is the essence of like a soul? What is like that makes a person? And you can have it be something. Obviously, there's not time for a full exploration of that, but I think that it was a huge missed opportunity where they end up with Data. I love the human Data. I think the jokes are funny and it's nice, having everyone together. I fucking love that shit. Kind of just appears and, beats him. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I just kind of wish it was kind of like, I think it could have been easily explained. It's like Data, it's like not quite Data. Lore, not quite Lore.
Yeah.
But you can call me Data because I like it could have like come out and be easier, and then you can kind of like have like a little bit of lore outbursts, because like Data had like those moments in the later episodes, like he had like little outbursts, he was being sarcastic, and he was like, oh, be positive, Data. It's like, I hope we die quick. It's like, oh, that was so good. But like, yeah, I think that was my only like the whole Data part, like thinking about it, I'm like, sure, you kind of had to have Data with the whole crew because it wouldn't kind of make sense. It kind of sucked if Data wasn't there. So yes, I accept that Data was there, but it just, to me, it felt season one, like it already sucked, but it's like, oh, that didn't matter. The only thing you really need to know is that Picard died because of the quote, the whatever condition was that turned out to be
mental degenerative disorder.
But that turned out to be just the Borg thing, which I actually loved. I loved how they did that, because ever since he was Locutus and he came out and became Picard again, he was always able to hear the Borg. And it was like, oh, they explained it perfectly. It felt like literally I know you mentioned the guy's name, the showrunner for Picard season 3. It's like he found someone, or he developed himself the perfect fan fiction and made it actually good, because for everyone in there, like every time Borg appeared, Picard can kind of sense them, he can hear them. It's because he is the receiver for the Borg, and kind of like it talks to them and kind of gives them information and speaks for them. I think Locutus is like the one who speaks. I think that's the nickname. But anyways, but it turned out
he's the receiver. So he's like, the Borg can speak through him. Yeah.
So like it was so good, because it's like it explains it, because they never really address it other than it's just like kind of quasi superpower against the Borg. That's like, oh, the Borg are here, and it never gets explained. But now it's like, oh, it's because of this little thing that actually killed you. And now they actually used it because of his son can now be the receiver and transmitter for all the Borg. Like that was great.
I think that's a really clever take. I will admit, when the Borg show up, I was like, oh no.
I love for the viewers. Yeah, for the viewers out there, I was literally watching and messaged David. I'm like, the Borg, you fucking kidding me? Like,
yeah, because they do one of those, it's like a late episode reveal where it's like there's like a nebula or some shit. Or no, it's outside Jupiter, and the clouds clear and it's like a Borg cube, and you're like, okay, cool.
And it makes sense later. You're like, oh, okay, this is pretty dope.
Yeah, because before that, the villains were the Changelings, which is the villains in Deep Space Nine.
It made sense. It made sense.
I was like, fuck yeah, that's cool. Like something different. Like you don't really see too many TNG. Like we've seen Worf deal with Changelings, but we haven't really seen other TNG people. So it's cool to take villains from one series, put them in another, but it all feels like it works. And so I was into it. They don't do enough with the Changelings, I think. I think it was more, that was underdeveloped, and I think they could have done something cooler. Because the Changelings are so fucking terrifying when they are impersonating people. And I thought there was so many times where I was like, that's definitely a Changeling impersonating someone. And I was like, nope, it was just someone being an asshole.
I really like the whole Changeling, because I think out of all the Star Treks, I like TNG and Deep Space Nine. It's pretty equal, because I like Cisco. Like he's pretty cool.
Yeah,
and then oh shoot, what was the
Voyager?
The Changeling Changeling Deep Space Nine.
Otto is the one in Deep Space Nine.
Otto. Yeah, I was kind of hoping he would come back. There was like one point I'm like,
oh, is that Otto?
Oh my god, Otto.
So the problem is,
yeah,
he's too much. Like Deep Space Nine is beloved by the fans, but it didn't have the same reach that TNG does, and none of the people in Deep Space Nine have the same face recognizability as the TNG people.
I mean, you got Voyager, you got Tuvok from Voyager, and then I was hoping for Janeway. I was like, Admiral Janeway? I was like, come on.
Yeah.
Because I had such a crush on Janeway. I was like, oh, so good.
Still do. Well, and it'll be interesting. We'll save that discussion for later in the episode, but where they can take it from here, because they give us hints of what they want to do.
Yeah.
But let's get back to what's in this season.
Yeah.
Because I agree. My general thoughts with Picard season 3, this is the best Star Trek thing since Deep Space Nine. I don't like Enterprise. It's fine, but I don't like it.
Enterprise was the first one, right?
No, Enterprise is the 2000s one with Scott Bakula.
Yeah.
That's like, so chronologically, you're right. It's the first one.
Yeah. I think they even mentioned that too, because it was like at the start of the fleet parade, they're like 250 years ago. I was like, oh, that's kind of a nice mention.
Yeah. And it's funny, in hindsight, I like Enterprise better, but it also is like the tipping point for what Star Trek became. Because I'm a big fan of episodic Star Trek. TNG's like the sweet spot. I love Voyager. I love Deep Space Nine. But Deep Space Nine, especially later, became a much more serialized thing. Like the Dominion Wars became like a linear thing. Like there was, death and permadeath for people.
Yeah. I mean, with Deep Space Nine, they had without the Dominion War, the show would be just so boring as fuck. Like it would just be Quark doing zany things, and then that's it. I mean,
I agree. I think they could have developed the show to be more like TNG, but I think the conceit of it being one space station makes it harder because you don't get to go to different planets and experience entirely different civilizations. You can experience individuals from those civilizations, maybe a group of individuals, but you don't get like, oh, we're landing on this planet and we have to totally have this crazy culture shock and deal with that. And like our values just don't align. What does that mean? And so I get that it was a smart move to move to the Dominion Wars and have this serialized drama. But to me, that was like the last good Star Trek show, and it's already moving to the stuff that I don't like.
Yeah, well, so I think it was Deep Space Nine, and was Deep Space Nine and Voyager happening at the same time?
About the same time. I think all three were on at the air at the same time, because the premiere of Deep Space Nine has Patrick Stewart in it.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the exact order, but I think it's TNG, I think then Voyager, then Deep Space Nine, but I think there was a crossover point for at least two, maybe all three.
Yeah.
Because the 90s were Star Trek era.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a good time, like just watching Picard, because everyone, like I said, made sense. The story was really thrilling. Those parts, why was Jack having all these crazy visions, and why does he have some super cool powers, and how does he control people? Like question mark. And then it just gets all explained, saying, oh, it's because of the Borg, which was like lame. But then it was kind of like, oh, he's controlling all the Zoomers, which is everyone who's under 25 and under. Yeah.
I actually think that they did a really good job with the setup of his control, or with the payoff of the control. Because there was definitely a while where I was, this is kind of dumb. And it's just like stupid action movie shit. And I was like, okay. Yeah. But when they explain it, that the Borg extract Locutus's like ability to receive, and have been implanting that into Starfleet using transporters. I thought that was really so clever.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh shit. Okay. And then Jack was born with this music.
Not to interrupt, it's because that was like a theme though with all Star Trek, because some people were freaked out by teleportation, because it's like you get digitized and then you get remade. So like I think it was a whole storyline. I think all Star Trek.
In TNG, there's at least that one cowardly engineer who like won't do.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, because it's like, because people always go, do you die every time? Which is,
are you at the end, or are you a clone of you? Like,
so I mean, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like I thought that was really smart, because like that is a big thing, because teleportation's like, that's how they don't have to deal with shuttlecraft all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's essential to their inner work, or like their all workings. But I thought that was a clever setup. And then it was kind of, I don't know, it was weird to me that it was only 25-year-olds. I thought it was smart that they're like, oh, it's because the brain's developing, so they take up the DNA change. But it was just because they didn't want any of the OG cast to get controlled.
Yeah, there was a lot of like the maladies I felt with that, because it's like the old guys can still take you boys to school, like like no worries there. And also it is kind of like the passing of the torch, right? Because it's like the younger generation does eventually take over, and all these old people, and like a lot of like the original Star Trek, TNG, some other of the other shows, they do die. Like they literally, you watch them get like blasted in the face. I was like, what? That sucks.
But yeah, I think they did a good job. What did you think of
Jack overall was really impressive, except when he went to the Borg. I was like,
yeah.
I would just like watch it. I'm like, Oh, so that you just
Walk.
like you literally like did the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
It was very frustrating because I think the show does a really good job justifying the actions of its characters. But there it's like, he's like, I'm sad. I'm going to go stand up to the Borg Queen. And he's like, I'll never join you. And she's, you're alone. He's like, okay, I'll join you.
Yeah,
it was
it's
like,
just
what? It felt really sloppy, like bad writing for sure.
I mean, there was a little bit at the beginning. It's like, oh, I've seen all the wars and the mistreatment and the bribery and this chaos and corruption in the world. This is maybe like a little bit of the Borg in me speaking, but I kind of wish it was all unified. So like there was that component, but to me, it didn't feel strong enough because like my own experience, like that's the world, but that's the shit. Like that's what you got to do. And then you kind of have to deal with it. And he's just like, he literally kind of, in a way, he did what a young person kind of did, was like, he thinks he can change the world, make it better, but then gets kind of like fucked over by someone old, which is the queen, the Borg Queen, and just takes advantage of him, of his purity of.
Yeah. And I don't know, that whole thing, it was frustrating. And it honestly took away from my enjoyment of the last two episodes. Whenever he gets assimilated, I was like, this was so stupid that it's hard to take anything and be like, I just kept thinking about how stupid it was. Anytime the Borg are winning the fights, I'm like, it's all because fucking stupid writing for Jack. And Jack,
I mean, yeah,
because I think Jack, a great character. The show Picard has utterly failed to make good characters. That's not. They have utterly failed in the past making some of their characters. Some of them are pretty good. I think Raffi's fine.
Raffi's great.
I like the Captain Rios. Yeah, Captain Rios was fine.
Which one's Rios?
So he's in the first season. He's captain.
I was kind of pissed that he wasn't here for the third one.
So
I'm like, he was dope.
the end of season 2 ends with like, they're all gone now, and so they give us like a montage because Rios basically stays in the past to stay with this woman he's fallen in love with. I think.
Oh, okay. I've never watched season 2, so I don't give a shit.
So, and then the other thing that they do, Alison Pill's character, who's like the cyborg doctor. She's in season 2 again, and she's a really important piece. So basically, season 2, I'll give you the crux of it. They go basically. Q sends them back to the past, but it's like they sends them to an alternate dimension where Starfleet is evil, and they're like a military dictatorship. And they've eradicated the Borg. And so they go back to the past. I can't remember exactly. They go to back to the past to change shit. But what happens is, it's the Borg attacks them and forces them to go to the past. Basically what happens is Alison Pill's character, she becomes the Borg Queen, but she's like a good Borg Queen. And so she's like, wants peace and good shit. So the season ends with her being a Borg Queen, but like a good one. They never, ever talk about that in this season. Not fucking once. And that's like, there is a Borg Queen in this, but it's like the OG one. And it makes way more sense. Like the one from, Insurrection, Nemesis. Is it First Contact? That's the last time we see. When Data blows him up.
No. In First Contact, he didn't blow them up. That's Nemesis when they blew it up.
But did they blow Borg? I can't remember.
No, so in First Contact,
in Nemesis.
Yeah, he dies in Nemesis, but in First Contact, it was in the warp core, and he shoots or breaks. Oh no, he punches the coolant that causes all organic matter to get eaten. Patrick Stewart becomes a man. He pulls himself up and then watches like the Queen die. Data had a very little bit of skin, so he was fine. Yeah. And then Picard breaks the spine of the Queen. So that's me nerding because I've watched that movie like 100 times. It's great.
So I like First Contact. I don't love First Contact.
Yeah.
And all the TNG movies kind of suck except for First Contact, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But Picard season 3 better than all of them. I think
I
like this better than even First Contact.
Okay, wait. So I want to try to do this test. I was thinking about doing this. So
okay.
Are there I think I might know your answer already, but it'll probably be different from mine, but I'll explain why. So, okay, I kind of like 1, 2, 3, and then say the name. who's your favorite new character in season?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So 1, 2.
Well, hold
three.
on.
Oh, wait.
Jack.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I said it.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah. I was gonna say so mine was Liam,
that's
the captain. Yeah.
he's pretty badass.
Because okay. Yeah. Anyways, you explain, or if you want me to explain.
I feel like he's the new person that they put in that I was like, they can go toe to toe in acting with at least most of the crew, if not even Patrick Stewart. Because I feel like, especially Soji in the first 2 seasons, that actor, she just like,
Soji was in season 2.
Yeah, she is, but not the character, the actor as a different character, like the daughter of Dr. Nguyen Singh, a clone, some bullshit. Who cares?
I'm so glad he just kind of like fucking destroyed those first 2
So
seasons.
her ending is Will Wheaton shows up, because he's a traveler now. He goes, between dimensions and shit. And he's like, I have a proposition for you. And then they're gone. And you're like, yay, goodbye.
You suck.
It also was, I felt like honestly a reminder as to why Will Wheaton's not in the show. Because I like Will Wheaton. He's done a lot of really cool content. I think he's like good at what he does. I don't want to be like shitting on him, but I didn't feel like I really missed him in the 3rd season. I think story-wise, I was like, it's kind of weird that there's a new Beverly Crusher son, and they never talk about Wesley. But
that's what they was like. She has another kid. I'm like, man, like she has them, and they either leave or die. So that's Jack.
Yeah. Well, and like I was okay with the fact that Picard didn't know about it. I thought it was like a little bit like, okay, convenient for the story, but it was fine. I think I really like that actor. I think he did a really good job with the complex emotion. Thought a lot of it. I think just really only when he turns to be a Borg, that was some pretty. But I think that's the writing that was the problem.
Yeah.
I liked when him and Picard connect it in the
bar
when they're being assimilated. No. When Jack is already being assimilated and he's transmitting the thoughts, and Picard, tries to unplug him and it won't work, and so he stabs himself in the neck.
He force assimilates himself.
Yeah, he force assimilates himself, and he's like has the chat with him inside. I thought that was pretty cool because that felt like a moment where they touched like, hey, the morality of it, like Jack being like, well, like everything feels good, everything's safe, everything's like homogenous, like it's all one thing. And Picard's like, no, the beauty of the universe is, the diversity of it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that whole theme of just like the uniformity of like that, I always find Borg is like the symbolism of fiction, because that's what it is. Like 7 out of 9 talks about it quite a bit. It's like, I kind of miss that kind of like being together. It is a drug and it takes a long time to give it. And then, so easy to succumb to it, and it's really hard to get out. And it's just like that whole thematic kind of thing. Also space zombies. Everyone loves space zombies.
Yeah, it's for sure. For sure, space zombies. To me, I always, especially in 2023, I feel like I interpret the Borg more as this idea that everything should be one thing, and it's like it's like kind of like globalization. It's like everyone just becoming part of one unit, and like even socially in North America, like the ideal like cultural like balance was the melting pot. Everyone comes here and puts a little bit to the pot, and then it all comes out into whatever Canadian culture is, whatever American culture is. But I think the value has changed a little bit, where we want people to not throw their ingredient in and then everything kind of just becomes one. It's more, we want people to cherish their individuality and like the places they come from, and like the history and like the beauty of that. And I think the Borg represents like, maybe not when it was written, but now represents the idea of the melting pot, or like color blindness.
The Borg. So, I would still say a little bit of addiction. So with the Borg, I do see it's like forced melting pot. It's like you have to let go everything, and you just are now a binary number. Like that's, you are that. So like it's globalization, like all unifying things in a bad way, because like no one wants to be assimilated. Well, I guess Picard at one point, but no one wants to. You know, like it
will have their
sucks
individuality erased.
Yeah, it is nice and comforting that you are in a group, but you lose that kind of aspect of decision and free will. Like that's what it is. And also, the Queen makes him look really bad.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting because like there is an argument, you know, in favor of the Borg, like this connectiveness and this unity and this like this idea that we're more than just ourselves. Yeah. But it's interesting to me because like you are like when you're part of the Borg, you're more than just yourself. You are all of it, but you're also less than you were because like what you were is just, you know, faded away and part of some collective consciousness that doesn't integrate that in a practical way. Yeah.
And also the fact too, it's like, you know, you don't really add into it. You are forced to be thing. So it's not like when you say the melting pot, like melting pot becomes more. This one's like more. It's not more different or more better. It's just same like that. Okay, so let me go back. So the reason why I like at everything he says, I'm like kind of like he has like the almost to me the perfect hero's journey of the whole show. Yes, you know, spoiler alert. He does die at the end. But you can see like he goes through the whole kind of aspect because before he died, and maybe even a little bit after in the kind of like the epilogue, he's very different because like he's very straight edge. You find out the reason why he's a straight edge, and then you can start seeing him coming around and then him ultimately changing, going with the TNG crew and sacrificing himself at the end. And then also at the end, 7 of 9 always thought he hated her, but he actually really respected her as a person and promoted to captain. It's weird because you see all these moments where you see Picard and Riker breaking all these rules. And this guy, like when he's like quoting things like, you're not supposed to do that. You're like, you know, he's kind of right. Like, you know, like you're not really supposed to do that. And they're like, oh, we have to go rescue Picard and Riker. It's like, oh, he's like, he states a very true thing. It's like, do I rescue 2 old relics, 2 old people?
Or
for 500 people. Like, it's like, if you're in that situation, I'd be like, this is going to sound like a dick, but I'd be with that guy because it's like, I don't want to die. Like,
well, 100%. We are so used to media portraying, you know, the cowboy mentality as the correct way forward. So I appreciated having him. Captain, what's his captain?
Liam, it's Liam Shaw. So Captain Shaw. Yeah.
Captain Shaw. Yeah. I thought he was great. I thought he was like unnecessarily rude at the beginning. I thought the writing was a tiny bit clunky. Yeah. Where I was like, I get it. Like, you know, you're putting up your walls, you're setting your boundaries, but it felt too showy in a way that I was like, this is kind of just shitty writing.
Yeah. But I didn't like, I think I know what scene you're talking about was like, he started eating dinner before
so Picard and Riker. I think that's that's the scene. I like that detail because they don't make like a big deal of it. They're like, oh, he's not interested in the decorum. And he's like, I think that's a cool, like little character tidbit you can do with a small amount of time. Yeah. I think it's just like the way he is talking in that scene or something, like just like unrealistically rude. But I really like where they take him and they really, you know, make you like him by the end. And then when he dies, you're like, no, Captain Shaw.
I mean, I think for me, I didn't mind that scene because especially later, when you see when he gives the commission of the command of Titan back to her, and you see Shaw in that fucking bar scene because they ran out of money. Like, it's like, what the fuck? Like, use a different bar at least. But anyways, I could talk about it later. But you see him explain it. It's because when Picard was Locutus and killing everyone in Starfleet at that time, it's like he explains like this to viewer if you don't care to watch it. He explains the fact that he was in engineering. The ship that he was on was totally screwed. They went to the life pod. There was I think there was like he said that there was 20 of them. There was only room for it. And everyone respected the chain of command. They waited until they got orders. A lieutenant came, and then the lieutenant just started picking people. And he was one of the people that was picked. And the lieutenant didn't even pick themselves, and he was saved. So it was like a traumatic moment because he remembers that Picard was Locutus, so he has like, you know, prejudice against him for his past crimes. And so that kind of gives me like, oh, it explains why he's so rigid and he's up to the rules is because he was inspired by that action of following the rules will at least kind of bring you some order in a time of chaos. So I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. But also you're still being really rude. But he's a character of going, wow, you're a dick, but I understand why.
Oh, for sure. And I think like it's super by like why he's so abusive. But I knew right away he was like Cisco is like, I'm a victim of Locutus. I like the story, you know, like of why he survived. But I feel like 30 years later, 35 years later, it's time to let go, everybody.
It's time to be a big boy and then kind of do it. But, you know, I think he does do a lot of growing up, like in the short span of like 3 years. And I don't know. Every time I see him, you're like, like you're getting to the TNG crew, like, and then he dies. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. He felt like I was like, oh, I'm glad you're here. You're on the level. It feels like you're part of this.
Yeah.
But I feel like he leads naturally into speaking about Jonathan Frakes, like Riker, who on my rewatch of TNG right now, I am realizing is such an underappreciated piece of why that crew is so good.
Yes.
He is the glue that holds it all together. Like, I was like, what's his thing? You know, he's like, you know, the brash, like, pilot type, but it's like, no, he doesn't really have any specific skill he can fall back on, but he is like the warmth and the compassion of that crew. And like an episode we watched, there's a total asshole that walks on board, and we're used to Jonathan Frakes or Riker being very kind and warm and inviting to people, but he's there to be like the first line of like social defense, and he pushes back so hard in just the right way. Like it's vicious, but it's firm, and it's like, you will not get away with that kind of behavior. And I feel like here too, he's always like the warmth and the kindness, and he brings it together. And I really like that scene when he's commanding and like things aren't going well and the ship keeps reappearing and they're like, what the fuck do we do? Yeah. And Picard gives him bad advice. And they fucking come at odds to each other and they're like really fighting. And it's like a great scene. But then in the next like scene or two, like they are able to have like a human grown-up discussion and deal with it. And I was like, that honestly was one of the moments. This show's gonna be pretty good.
No, I think 100% you're right, because it's like it's kind of there's a lot of different layers when you actually think about it. Cause like they're best friends, like they've known each other for decades, and they have this decorum of like they know how to act in front of everyone in a proper Starfleet way. It's like, oh, you know, Riker, you're Captain Picard. Okay, I'm retired technically, so I'm not really a commissioned officer. But he's like, I'll be your number one. Like he automatically, like there's no like egos, there's no boss. They're trying to help each other. But yeah, Picard does up, and then he's like, get off my bridge. Picard does, like in most cases, most shows, you'd see like a action or a kind of conflict going, no, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. Like Picard's like, okay, and just like leaves, like straight up leaves and feels bad for himself.
He knows he fucked up. Yeah, he knows he's up. And his ego isn't so big that he's not willing to accept, you know, that he fucked up.
I mean, and then the scene that you're talking about is like Riker goes, this is what's happening, and Picard's like, oh, I'm sorry. But it's like Riker was also like, it wasn't good advice, but also it was good advice at the same time. It's like, we should be fighting.
It was a no-win scenario,
Yeah, that's the episode no-win scenario. And then it was just, it's so good because, I do 100% agree. He's the glue, because when you think about all the personalities, like Worf is kind of like the brash, almost like Data, but he just has like kind of like the comic relief, but also bad at. You know, Beverly Crusher is the very like straight, here's the signs, this is what we need to do, and sometimes it's not correct, or she kind of breaks the rules. Deanna Troi is like the heart, or like she's the kind of like the conscious of the crew. Jordan LaForge is the curious guy, and Data is just like, he's like the baby of the and Picard is like the very person that is like very calculating. He knows how to talk to people, make sure like to get them what they need. But also Riker is that person who you kind of need, because like he kind of represents the people watching the show, in my opinion. Like,
I think that's fair.
Human being, because he's like, oh, you sure you want to do that, Picard? Because you know this could happen. And it's like, no, and then you always see that things, and it's just great. Like, 100%. Like he is the. And he actually is going through shit too in this whole episode.
Well, I think in particular in TNG, Picard is like kind of asocial. Like he's a great leader and like he's a definitive decision maker, but he always, I think he doesn't enjoy the person to person part of being a captain, like having people report to him, and like, you know, Riker is such a good ambassador for him on the ship, where it's like he can give these orders that aren't popular, and Riker can go and like soften the blow, or
Picard is the dad and Riker's the mom of the ship.
I think that's a great analogy. Riker is totally the mom in a traditional sense of the crew. And I think I always just kind of threw him away. You can list what the other people do, and what he does is so intangible, but I also think it's kind of a skill that's gone away in the modern era because we're so hyper fixated on efficiency. So if someone doesn't offer like a specific skill set that is visible from the outside, or like monetizable specifically, then it's like they're not interested. And so to have, you know, an anchor, an emotional anchor, or like a social anchor of the crew doesn't sound like, you know, a monetizable position, but he's so important. And I think that in society, we need more of these social anchors.
Yeah, I mean, those like everyone's on the right, everyone's left. Hey, Picard, you should really listen to this guy because he makes some good points. And hey, guy, listen to Picard because he also makes some good points. So he's like the most technical. Everyone says Picard's very diplomatic. I think honestly, Picard would have without. I'm not talking about the show. The like, you know,
character.
Captain Picard, the character, would have sucked without.
Yeah, I think he's a great diplomat, like an ambassador to the outside, and I think that's Picard's strength. Like if I think about any character in history that I want to be an ambassador for human to the galaxy, I'm like, yeah, Picard's pretty high up there, man. But do I want Picard to be my immediate boss? Probably not.
No, because Picard has that coldness of like he could send you to the death, and you just have to accept it. At least John, like with Riker, he would do the same, but at least you would feel good about it.
No, but he would join you. He'd be like, "I'm part of this."
Yeah,
and I just appreciate him, and I think that even like, not politically speaking, I think that like workplaces and friend groups and stuff, like we need more social anchors, and we need that to be a valued skill.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like that's just something that doesn't really happen as much as it did in the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just old and I have no friends.
I think I 100%, like now thinking about it as a kid, I'm like, yeah, when I first saw Riker and I watched him, I didn't like him too. And it's just like, oh, he's just there to bang Deanna Troi. Like that's all he was.
Well, exactly. He's the guy who fucks the space aliens. And you could pretty clearly tell they took, you know, the original series crew and they flipped first mate and captain, where like captain was like the hot, brash, lady killer, cocky guy, and they made that the first officer, whereas the first officer in the original series is Spock, you know, cold, calculating, very direct. They flip that, make that the captain. I think that's a good switch they made. But
here's one thing I was disappointed in the whole show with Riker. He didn't do the chair thing. He didn't.
He's too old.
I mean, like he could have done it at the bar. Like he could have just went wee.
Maybe. I will say, as amazing as it is to have everyone together, they're all old. They're not all old, but and this season was a lot better than season 1. Season 1, it's a story thing that Picard is old and frail. And that is not fun to watch a beloved character you knew as like a 40, 50-year-old become old and frail. And like, I love Picard still, but it just wasn't a pleasant thing to see. And that's like maybe shitty and shallow. I don't think that was like a fun part of the show for anyone. So I think they've done away with like their frailty, but it is intense seeing them 30 years later.
Yeah.
But Michael Dorn, I like white-haired Worf a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think he was really good. And I think honestly, like Geordi was fucking awesome. Like he was like, you could see there was a difference, as he did say, it's like, you know, when I used to be a kid, like when I used to be on the Enterprise, I would follow you guys anywhere without question. But now I have kids. Like he brought so much more character, like so much growth to his character, because he has 2 kids and now he's all worried. But it's like, I liked how Picard also gave him the realization. It's Geordi, like without your kid, even with you trying to protect your kids are not safe because you're just with me. So regardless if you're screwed if you do, kind of, you're screwed if you don't. Like that's why I really, I don't know. It's something about Geordi's like LeVar, but he did such a good job on it.
Well, I think that's such a great dilemma where he's like, when it was just me, this danger was my choice to make. But now as a father, like, I don't want to see my kids in danger. But Jordy, it's their decision to make. And like your daughter, the one that's not actually your real life daughter, she's so willing to jump into danger. Like she's like recognizes it. And it's like, in the end, this is a universe scale conflict. Either you win or you're all dead anyway. So
yeah. That's why like that's it was so good. Actually, the one thing too with the daughter, and I did not care for that sexual thing.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I guess. I'm a big fan of close platonic relationships. Yeah, and I think that's a lot harder to write than you're kind of hot.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why I got kind of weird is because like Jack was like kind of reading her thoughts too. It's like, ooh, like,
oh yeah, that did get weird.
Like, I wish he touched my hand or something. He's like, oh, why did he touch my hand? I know. It was like,
it's invasive.
Yeah, I was like, is it okay? Like, if you could read her thoughts is that kind of you're manipulating? Oh, it is manipulation. Yeah, for sure. It is wrong. For sure. It is 100% wrong. But I think my favorite part of the show, I think you probably can relate to that, is we all knew it was coming. We 100% knew it was coming because it was mentioned early in the show too. It's you go to the space dock and see you see the
Enterprise D. Yeah.
You're like, yeah. I was like celebrating. I'm like, yeah, this is so sweet.
Yeah, I think they did a good job justifying why they needed it. It's like, obviously it's there for fan service. Like there's a lot of other options they had, but like it was good enough reason. And then being on that bridge that is so dated in such a comforting way was so nice. Like, I love that they even comment like, you know what I miss? The carpet. It's like, it's all the new ones. Yeah. It's like, they want it to look sci-fi, and what looks more sci-fi than reflective surfaces. So everything is shiny, everything is light, everything is reflective. And it has this look that's so cold. And it's not that I hate the modern look, but there's something so warm and comforting about TNG's bridge.
And then also it's like, I missed that voice. Like the voice was like the same as the original one. And here's my only kind of a little bit complaint is they probably borrowed this from, I think, Fast and Furious 7 or 8. Anyways, it was just like, all the ships are connected because they're all digital, but the Enterprise D is analog. I'm like, I had to pause it. I'm like, that was fun. The fucking Fast and the Furious when Charlize Theron's character hacks all the cars and made zombie cars, and they had to get really old classic supercars because they're carburetor and analog. I was like,
I don't think that Fast and the Furious invented that idea.
No,
but I like that idea that maybe, that was the inspiration. I think that was fucking stupid. I was pissed. I was like, Starfleet really fucking put all their ships, on one security band. They can all be hacked all at once. Come on, man. And like the idea that, the Enterprise D, that's still like fucking 300 years in our future. Yeah. And a ship that's 330 years in the future are so drastically different. And like that one would be defined as analog and one's defined as digital. It's like, fuck you. It's not like the 70s and like the like 2300s. It's like 23 and 2330. Like those are so close in time compared to the technology of today that like the idea that the Enterprise D isn't part of some network is total bullshit.
Yeah.
I thought it was dumb.
It felt so weird, and also it's like, I don't know, like this is when the show kind of like starts getting a little bit less realistic, like because the first like 2/3 of it, it's like very like on point of like, this happens because of this, because you explain the science really well and not in like a nerd stupid way of like, we could do this because like we can do this because this and that. I'm like, cool. This one, it was like weird because like it was only like the handful of them, like the main cast. How are you flying the fucking ship? Like, where's your engineering team? Like,
there should be hundreds of people. Yeah. Yeah. They could have maybe explained it away. Maybe like JoDa, automated a bunch because it's supposed to be like a historic ship or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, it's like the most like automated thing. He's like, well, the drones are loading the torpedoes. I'm like, that sounds like a plausible thing. I can get behind that. Sure.
But I was fine with that. But I think my general enjoyment of the show, the first 4 episodes were my favorite. The middle ones were a little bit less. And then the finale, like, I think I enjoyed less. It was kind of a little bit of a decline throughout the season. but it never went below like a 7. Like even like the stupidest episode, I was still like solid 7.
The second last episode was to me the worst because of the whole Jack situation.
100%.
I did like kind of like the Zoomer versus Boomer aspect because that was kind of neat. The last episode I really enjoyed because they kind of like summed everything up and made it good. Like honestly, I think the second to last episode 7. Everything else was like 8 and above at least.
Yeah, I think so. And I like that.
Yeah.
Oh no, I just like that they close it off really well. Like they even bring back the ending of TNG as this poker game, and they do the credit sequences that I thought that was really nice, really warm, really comforting. And it's like, it's crazy that we had a good ending to TNG. Like when Patrick Stewart comes and joins their poker game, that's kind of like the perfect ending. Like that's like the end of his character arc, is that he's, one of the crew. He sees them as friends, not just crewmate, or like not just his, his crew. Yeah. But bringing it back, then they do the movies, and the movies kind of just like go off, and they're like not really TNG. They're just something completely different. Then we have all these other shows, and then Picard season 1 and 2 that suck, and they just like they didn't get it right. And so for them to somehow at the end of 30 years bring it back and have it feel appropriate and feel like it honors it and it's enjoyable and it all makes sense, a fucking miracle that they got it there.
It's so good, and actually like even beyond even beyond that poker scene, because they had like the secret bonus one, they actually like it still makes sense because it's like, oh, you could still have Picard, it just won't be Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, it'll be Jack Picard. And I love how like Eamon Ladd, like, oh cool, I think her name is Carrie Ryan, 709. Raffi's gonna be there, hopefully. I hope they keep them. You have Jack, who's not the big captain, he's like Riker, which is kind of cool. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then it still can be Picard because it's like it's him, it's like it's with these guys.
Well, so I hope that they close this series off. I hope that they do another I don't want them to do another Picard. I think they can bring that character into a series. But like, I don't know, man. I love Q, but season 2 of Picard, they close off the Q stuff. And I was like, I wasn't surprised that they brought him back, whatever.
It'd be like humanity's trials is over for Picard. I was like, fucking Q.
Yeah. And so I'm not against a show that features Jack, but I don't want it to be a continuation of this show. I want it to be like essentially fucking TN. All I want from Star Trek is a fucking episodic show with characters that I like and like slowly grow over the 4 or 5 seasons or whatever. And each episode is a moral dilemma presented by value differences with different cultures. And if they do that and they include Jack, I'm cool with that. But if they do a fucking serialized drama with Jack being tried by Q for a whole season, it's like, okay.
Yeah, I get that, but I kind of understand. Let's just like, okay, cool. They didn't close it. They kind of left it open, so you could have Jack. Yeah. You could have Picard, which honestly, let's be honest, it's gonna happen.
Do you think Patrick Stewart would come back?
No. I think they're gonna continue Picard, but it'll be with Jack Picard. Like that's
I don't think so. I don't think I don't think they'll continue that name. I think that if they continue the show Picard without Patrick Stewart, they will have such a needless backlash. And it's not like Picard is such a strong name. Like if they do Star Trek Picard versus, Star Trek New Adventures, Star Trek
Titan,
the next, like the now generation, like whatever, some stupid play on the TNG.
Yeah.
I think that is just as valuable as doing Picard without Picard.
I think just for me, I'm just thinking from the business sense of like, okay, cool, all the assets are there. You just change the actors and then it'd be kind of good. But yeah,
I'm saying that works against them. I think that it hurts them more than the business side saves them. I think it on the cultural cachet and the fan anger, it'll do more damage than, being able to have like, oh, we have these art assets already. And I think even more than the name recognition, I don't think the Picard name recognition is that insanely strong. And the only recognition it'll be like, oh, they did Picard without Picard. Okay.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Yeah, I guess so. I guess maybe they'll like call it like, They'll figure something like next generation. No, that'll be terrible.
I think it'll be some stupid play on generation is my guess.
Yeah,
It'll be like,
oh, the next evolution.
yeah.
Anyways,
something like that.
Yeah, I did the one thing I think you and I could both agree that was very surprising. Man, that space dock can take a fucking beating.
Well, and I didn't really understand. It looked like it was shot down and it like hits the space shield, like the planetary shield. But then at the end of the season, it's just like back up, and I was like, "Oh
no!" They rebuilt it. It took, I think, there was at least a couple of years, or at least 1 year.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, but here's my thing: was like that original one where the Borg fleet was like fighting the space station. I was like, "Holy shit!" Like that thing could take like anything it throws at it. I'm like, there was like photon torpedoes on photon torpedoes and phaser fire going nuts. Wow. That thing is built.
Yeah. I think that might have been my least favorite scene in the whole season was just like Terry Ryan or 709 is just like doing these strafing runs and like they're just all there lined up shooting. It was like, this is stupid. And like it adds nothing to it. And I don't like when Star Trek focuses on space combat. I think it's like, that's when it's at its dumbest. But I understand that there's people that watch space shows for flashing lights and shit.
Well, they want the ship battles, which is cool. But yeah, no. Anyways, I think I'm done talking about Picard.
Yeah, me too. I think overall I'm fucking so happy that it's actually good. It's not like the best thing I've ever seen. It's not the best Star Trek that there ever was, but it's the best Star Trek since Deep Space Nine. So
yeah, because like for me, like the best thing I've seen so far this year will still be The Last of Us. Like that's just perfection in a TV show.
That's a different thing.
But like this is, to me, satisfies all the fan service I could ever get. And yeah, I could talk about it a little bit more, but I'm kind of done.
Well, have you watched the latest episodes of Ted Lasso? Are you up to date?
Yeah, I'm up to date. Oh my god, it's whoops.
Okay, so let's talk briefly, or should we save the whole thing for a later date?
I mean,
we're already over. No, let's save it.
Yeah, save it.
I have lots of thoughts, and I have strong thoughts on last night's episode. But why don't we move right? Yeah. Strong thoughts. You wanted to talk a little bit about Yakuza, so give me a brief little bit because we're running late.
No, we're not. Well, actually, wait. We're technically not running late because we had the warm up, but that's fine. Actually, let's skip Yakuza. Do you want to talk to bad PC ports? I don't know. It feels like it's not. I think it's like maybe we'll just talk about like my current experience with the.
I think keep it like fairly brief because it's like we don't. Yeah. I don't think people want to hear it, but I don't think they want to hear like too much of the nitty gritty. Yeah,
cool. Do you want to intro it or?
Sure. Yeah, I feel like that's it for Picard. Why don't you, Jono, tell us a little bit about some of your updates on living in the United States?
Living in the United States is freaking interesting. So part of the biggest kind of things here is that you have to get ID, you have to get all sorts of different kind of paperwork done, but here's the thing is that there was no service to tell you this. So I had to research everything. I had to go, okay, what do I need to do? I need this, this, and this. And one of the big components is you need a driver's license. I have a driver's license, but that's a Canadian driver's license or a BC driver's license. Mm-hmm. Now you need a New Jersey driver's license. Along with that, you need to register your car and get Jersey insurance and plates and et cetera, blah, blah, blah. But fuck, the whole process to get your New Jersey license from out of country is a whole different experience.
So a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I did some research. I did two things. I researched online on the website, also third-party websites. I even called the freaking DMV, or what they call here, the Motor Vehicle Commission, MVC, to go, okay, how do I do this process? I looked at it going, all right, I need to do what's called an out-of-state, because that's the equivalent. And I called someone, they said the same thing in a third-party website. So they all said the same thing, and they go in, do some paperwork, and then you're done. Like you'll get your new license, you take a new photo. Fantastic. I go to there. I made an appointment. I went there. I had 4 people yell at me going, you can't do this. You can't get a license. You have to take a test, blah, 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 and maybe a driving test. And I was like, holy shit. Like,
I don't want to take a driving test.
Yeah, I don't want to take a driving test. Like, that sucks. Like, I drove across the fucking country here. But 2, chill. Holy shit. I made one little mistake. Just explain it to me like a fucking human being. I get it. It's like the worst place you can probably work because that place is just built on someone. You go to a line, you tell them what you want, and then they tell you to go to a different line, and then you do some paperwork. They give you a number, and then you have to wait in another line until your number is called. It's like you're in a process of hurry up and wait. Like, that's the whole thing. And here's the fucked up thing. These little forms you have to fill out. You have to fill them out perfectly. If you make a mistake, you have to get out of line, fill it out, and go back of the line. And it's like, in these lines are not like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They're like 20 minutes. So I fell in line. There was a part that said county. In my head, I didn't read the whole word. I thought it was country. So I put, I put country, USA. That's kind of weird, but okay. But they're like, oh no, you had to put county, which I'm not going to say because that just will dox me. But so they're like, okay, you have to go back in the line. I'm like, oh, fuck me. Yeah. So anyways, I pretty much did all the paperwork and they're like, okay, you got to do a knowledge test. And I was like, what's a knowledge test? Like, oh, it's a written multiple choice test. Same thing as here, just to make sure that you know the rules. Okay, cool. Do you want to do it now? I'm like, fuck no, I don't know all the rules. I know how to drive, but there was always differences.
Yeah, it's always like, okay, you can be this far from the curb. You have to be this far from another car. Like,
and everything is in miles per hour too. So like my mindset is different because like for the viewers, if you're American, I know you can drive like about like 35 miles per hour, which is equivalent to our 50 kilometers per hour. And then you can drive on rural roads, which is 50 miles per hour, which is our 70 kilometers. And it's just all that kind of shit. And there's like certain restrictions and little things like that. I spent like a week and a half testing and did dummy tests. And I kind of wish I did a stream on the tests because sometimes, man, I would guarantee some people will think some answers are one thing, but it's actually another because it's just how they word it.
Yeah, they're trying to trick you.
Yeah.
It's very rude.
So anyways, yesterday morning was when I did my knowledge test. And there was a whole like identification purpose like thing. You had to bring like 6 points of ID. Each ID is worth a certain value of points. And I already went through that, I thought I could just use a basic ID just to verify everything. No, you have to bring all of it again. And so I had to drive all the way back to the house, get my passport, get my all these like bits of information and do it and go to it. So I spent 20 minutes getting told that's not right. No, actually 20 plus 15. It was like 30 minutes. I had to go back home, get back in line. That's another 30 minutes, do the test, and then back all the lines. But here's the thing. I did the test and I did a tweet. I thought I was really prepared. Like I was like confident because every dummy test I've done, I was like 85, the lowest, 96 was the highest. So you need 40 answers to be right out of 50.
Okay.
And I was at 39 right, 8 wrong. And so I had like 2 opportunities to pass this test. And the questions I was getting wrong was not me. No, like I know how to drive. I know the rules. Well, all the tests were like administration tests. It's like, oh, if you're a graduated driver, can you drive at these times? I'm like, bitch, I don't know. Like, I don't care. I don't want to know. It doesn't matter. Whatever. So I was getting all these answers wrong because it was just like, oh, there's like, if you're a GDL, can you have one person? Or if you're a GDL, if you make a mistake and you violation, do you get the points on your license? Or is it both your instructor? Like it's all these things. Like it shouldn't matter. Like you shouldn't have to know these things, but apparently you do. But I passed. Like literally my Apple Watch, I started at like 80, 70, 80 resting heart rate. It went up to like 130. It thought I was having a heart attack because I was like, 39, please be right. And I passed. It was great.
Oh, thank God. Yeah. That's the DMV or the MCV.
MVC, yeah.
MVC. They're like notoriously shit. And don't envy the process you've had to go through. So
yeah. So, but I have to
Sucks,
go
man.
back soon because I have to do my registration. I'm getting my license next week. But here's the fun thing. This is something that I was alluding before in the wing warm up. If you want to hear that, go to patreon.com/let's wing it.
hell yeah.
So, okay. Maybe for the viewer, we have to explain this to you a bit. So we also have kind of a graduated license system. We have in BC or in Canada. You have your learner's permit, which you have to, when you get it after the knowledge test, you drive with someone else or above 25 and you can drive, and that's how you learn. Then you get a new driver's license or the N system, and then you can drive by yourself. And then after that, you take a test, you get your full license or class 5. I never got my class 5. So I'm 37. I've had a N driving license since I was 18. So for 19 years, I never got the full
I thought
license.
it expires. I thought after a
You
certain
just
amount of time,
renew
the
it.
N
You
expires.
just renew it. You just
Okay.
renew it. So I just kept renewing it because here's the thing.
But then,
I never.
wait, you weren't allowed to have more than one person in your car.
Yeah. So until I'm 21, and then the other person that was always in my car was my wife or my friends who are over 25. So it was
No,
like, fine.
but it doesn't matter. You're not allowed to have more than one person that's not your family in your car. So you've
I've
gotten like, you
No.
get like a $500 fine, dude.
No, I know. I've gotten tickets. I've showed my ID. I've never got that kind of fine before.
So you're definitely with an N. You're only allowed one person in your car. They have to be, and they have to be and they can be anyone.
Yeah.
But I think if it's family, you're allowed a little bit more exceptions. But it's only one person in your car.
Oh
So
my
I'm surprised.
God, that's
the guy probably just
hilarious.
didn't even look that it was an N license.
Probably
And
not.
you didn't have your N on the back of your car, I don't think.
No, I never did. So, fun fact, hopefully not, but this does not bite me in the ass. So I'm going to get my full license in New Jersey. So I skipped that last test. And then if I come back to live in Canada, I'm just going to take that full license and just transfer back. So I fucked the system. I beat you.
I did the same thing. So I had in Ontario, it's the same thing. You have your G1, G2, and then your G is like the full license. And so I had the equivalent of an N in Ontario, and then I moved out here, and I just signed up, and they're like, "All right, here's your license," and it was a class 5, and I was like, "Nice." So it's nice. They don't seem to communicate super well. Like it's like most places have like a beginners, learners, and a full license. You'd think that they would be interchangeable where you go, but they're so poor at communicating that it's just nice you get to beat the system. It's sick.
Yeah. Jillian's so mad. My wife, Jillian, she is like, you fuck. Like I can't believe you never got your class 5, which is hilarious. And it doesn't matter. I don't drink anyways. So it really doesn't matter. I never carpool. Who cares? Usually enough, I only had like one person in the car anyways.
Usually it's not super common to have like 5.
Yeah. So,
You did it. Congratulations.
I beat the system. I just had to drive 3,000 miles and move to a new country to beat the system.
Super easy. I'm sure it was worth all the paperwork just for that.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to give that update of America, fix your shit. Because also, I have to go back to register a car. I'm buying a car.
Ooh, what car?
I'm not gonna say it's what I will.
I think I know.
Yeah, I think I've told you, but
You told me.
I will announce it on. I'll announce it on Patreon first. Let's just say that. When it happens, I'll do it. But I have to register the car. I have to go back to the fucking DMV. Why? I wish I could just do this online. No.
Nope, that's not how it works. Just like it doesn't work for us to continue this episode.
Yeah,
let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up. So I'm going to go thank all our Patreon members. So let's just do it. All 14 of them. Thank you guys so much. So we got our most recent to the first one. So we got Emma Franklin, Mark Bradshaw, Maury Martinez, Sly Maryland, Ethan Lowe, David Curry, Briggs Wellman, Emil Coe, Daniel Quazo, Joe Norton, Cody Owen, Matthew Noonan, which is the biggest bro out there because he pledges a lot, and also he gave us all those hot sauces, which I miss doing with you. Mike 1814 and Guillermo Navarro. Thank you guys so much for being patrons. If you want to pledge and support us, go to patreon.com/let's wing it.
Let's wing it. You want to reach us by email, let's wing it 22@gmail.com or let's wing it pod on Twitter.
Yep.
And then individually, what's your Twitter? Jono Tan? No, Burnt Banana.
Yeah, no, Jono Tan 86.
Okay, and I'm The Chosen David.
Yeah.
And so next week we'll see you then, people.
Bye-bye. And this podcast is owned by JoDa Media Ltd.
JoDa Media. Where the fuck's my mouse cursor? For fuck's sake.